Alrighty, and welcome back to BitThink with me, Christina. And it turns out that, yep, there are going to be at least 3 of these. But just finishing up where I got cut off by my 15-minute chunk. These two broadcasters are definitely have educated me, and I enjoy the stuff that they produce. So, again, anybody who's coming new to this space, and I say that in the sense of, one of the things that drives this channel for me is if I were walking down the road here in my local community or at the beach or pretty much any and everywhere that I go, I am definitely spreading the word. And I am putting together here a curation of sources that I would direct people towards in the first instance, and who have definitely informed the way that I think and understand this new space. So I'm doing this as an exercise also in making sure that I account for who it is that has informed me. I guess that's the academic historian in me. It's a version of footnotes. And the last broadcaster that I want to mention in this context of general and community news is CNBC Africa. As far as I know, they're the only kind of live, regular network crypto show reporting. But yeah, I think it is key. Again, these are things that we know, but we really need to, especially if we're in the Northern Hemisphere or the Western Hemisphere, we really need to pay attention to Africa and recognize in the first instance that that is a lot of different versions of Africa. And that Kenya and South Africa and Nigeria and the Congo and Northern Africa, all of them have radically different needs and drivers and utilities, and yet the thing that unites the continent is a degree of cell phone penetration and developed infrastructure for cell phone functionality, banking through your phone cards, which you get at the gas station, which is 80K away from where you live, which is how my mom operated in South Africa for the last 20 years of her life. These guys have been way far ahead of the West or the North for a good long period of time. So I am working on making sure that I try to get more exposure to the voices and perspectives of people who are broadcasting out of Africa on the cryptosphere. Okay, so this is a small collection of broadcasters, and obviously I couldn't come up with anything better than the fact that they are never without insightful comments, so I check in with them regularly. Okay, so this gentleman is, I believe, German, although if he isn't, please correct me, get in touch. But yeah, I have been listening to him, especially since around the time of the kerfuffle to do with the upcoming fork. And I have found that certainly in terms of what I take to be a kind of phlegmatic Germanic approach towards sort of extremes of emotion, his perspectives are really useful, partly because he acknowledges that those extremes exist. So I would say the gentleman over there at We Need to Talk really definitely talks about a lot of really good things. So we are next going to CryptoInvestor. So CryptoInvestor, I'm pretty sure I have come across some of his work previously at Seeking Alpha. I definitely think he would think of himself as a kind of contrarian. He's clearly coming to this space with a lot of experience and insight into the traditional space. And I think consistently his kinds of reality checks are super useful, especially again for the newbie, and in some ways we're all newbies. In thinking about some of the greater likelihoods and probabilities when people start seriously speculating on what's going to happen and who's going to do what. His insight into the degree to which Bitcoin has the architecture and the infrastructure in place, and that gives it a really important degree of competitive advantage in terms of inertia, regardless of what miners do and regardless of what kind of shenanigans with regard, market making, price moving stuff. So I think he is also got some good contributions to make in the How to Understand Tether project. I'm not going to call it controversy. I think it's more a project that the communities are trying to work out what this is. His voice for me combines with some insights that Richard Hart had about what happens when we make good laws. If we don't have kind of fast and easy and adequate, minimally adequate, functional good laws, then there is going to be a continued incentive towards a lack of transparency if in order to get legitimate liquidity into the marketplace, entities have to bank with multiple second and third and fourth world institutions. And that goes a little bit to some of the comments that Nick over at DataDash was making with regards to the alarming part of non-transparency. I think that if you combine that with some insights that CryptoInvestor has made, you can, along with some of the really cogent kind of logical, legal implication points that Richard Hart makes, you can start to see that if you want these projects to succeed, you have to not try to put the cart in front of the horse, and certainly not hold account institutions that are being forced to operate somewhat in the dark, precisely because of the forces that crypto is designed or looks like it's going to anyway disrupt. So I may, as I say, make a little bit more on that, but I do want to definitely encourage people to listen to CryptoInvestor because I listen right away when he publishes more stuff. And then there is They Call Me Dan, who is awesome. He speaks about an incredible wide-ranging group of things. I totally love the disclaimer he has at the beginning of his video, which tells you that this is his journey and that you are responsible for your money, which is one of the things about this whole version of money and citizenship and so on that I really particularly groove to. So I love this channel and everybody should watch. Alrighty, so let's say you are not so new, or you are, beginning to be really interested in ICOs. Oh my gosh, ICOs. And let's say you've watched Ivan on Tech, you've watched a couple of the other kind of how-to voices, and you want to drill down a little deeper into the ICOs universe. Of the people who are broadcasting regularly on YouTube on this subject, these guys are the ones that I have given my attention to. Alrighty, so here we have who I think of as the spreadsheet boys. There's OhHeyMatty and Ian Balina. And both of them have really very highly complete spreadsheet parameters all organized, and they have pretty rigorous criterion and so on. And they cover a pretty wide range of ICOs and do seem to have a degree of insight into who and what kinds of backgrounds the people of the various teams of the ICO bring to their projects. So they're worth listening to. Keith, got to say about Keith. I grew up sailing. I have been known to have a salty mouth, my own self on occasion. Keith should come with a bit of a warning label not to play when your kids are eating breakfast. But another one of the British voices out there that I enjoy. I think he's highly entertaining, and I obviously don't go seeking only things that agree with my pre-inclinations. So even if I don't agree with some of his analyses, I think that when he is making good points, he's making very good points. And his kind of take on the math of coin economics, token economics, is pretty solid. So have a look at him. But my favorite, I gotta say, in this arena is Bloq. And I love the graph that he has developed, three-dimensional rating system. I like the clustering of a group of ICOs together. I like the rigorous skepticism. He's so much less wordy than I am. So I would definitely say anybody who's interested in this should check out CoinBloq and try to use some of the ideas that all of these guys are using when they're deciding whether or not to support any given ICO. All right, in this category, there's a very few number of people that I consistently watch. And while there's an awful lot of great educational stuff out there, as well as entertaining stuff out there, as well as Tone Vays, who I swear I have to study more because sometimes it feels like just casting runes. I need to understand what his system is. The guys who I really follow kind of religiously are in this section, and another guy who I think is worth listening to on a lot of fronts. So here we go. Okay, so here is CryptoDiggy, who is a Dutch South African living in, I think, Holland. Again, one of these multifaceted broadcasters, really good on assessing emerging projects and stuff, and I'm pretty certain has a background in Forex trading, and I think that his use of charts or the market predictions, price predictions that he makes are pretty good, and I encourage you to go and have a look because I think of the people in the space who are using a lot of chart indicators, graphing function and capacity. CryptoDiggy is sticking to the more simplistic and useful ones, as opposed to kind of doing a version of sort of math performance art, which some chart reading always strikes me as. And then the people who I would like everybody to go and listen to immediately, regardless of whether or not they're in the space to really day trade, which requires ridiculous amounts of discipline and kind of complete command of this kind of relationship. These guys are doing something with their chart presentation and their very short term, say 12, 24, 36 hour kinds of predictions about price, by reading the market in terms of a concept they have, which is the news already being in the charts. And I think I may even make a kind of piece specifically on this concept that HueFIn News is using, because not only are they giving excellent short-term advice if you want to trade, they've been consistently on the market for weeks and weeks and weeks, but the kinds of insights that they are bringing about how this new ecosystem and its expression through the market and its more specific expression through a certain set of parameters in the charts is telling us something about how the crypto market is, in many ways, as new as it is, resurrecting some of the very much older forms of market participation and the function of news, rumor, information, closeness to the project or closeness to the sources of information, which have often been described as insider trading. But I would ask, there's never been a market in the history of man that doesn't have insider trading. It's just a question of how inside you have to be, or how permeable those barriers to entry to information actually are. So I think that what these guys are doing by way of how they're understanding psychology, desire, fear, without getting super heavy into that language, but providing a brief, consistent, timely, accurate assessment of what is going on and what is likely to continue to go on in 12, 24, 36 hour period. Awesome. Can't say good enough things.